Hello witches, welcome back to the channel. Once again, this is xoxo. So someone asked me in a comment on a previous video, asking me to do a video about time because they didn't understand what I was saying in the past video. The video is called, oh shit, what is it called? The veil isn't just thinning, it's being dispelled. Okay, I made that video in 2016 talking about what would happen when Goddess Hecate returned and how the veil would be extra super thin and dissipated through the process of her return. Well, she has returned this year in July. So, you know, that's the state that we're in right now. The veil is very, very thin right now. And much more thinner than it normally is during Samhain, or during any Sabbath. But in that video, I was talking about kind of that time does not exist, not in the way that it is portrayed to us, you know, through normal education and stuff like that, and through science. If you actually look deeper into it, okay, let me backtrack for a second. This person asked me or said that they didn't understand when I said that there is no time, that there is just movement and growth. Okay, let me make sure I say that at the beginning of this. Okay, so if you look deeper into time, I recommend you to go and look up something called time dilation. You can look that up on YouTube. There is videos of people breaking down this scientific thing to very simple terms and in a way that most people can just understand it simply. So definitely go look that up. Look up time dilation. Look up space-time. Look up the space-time continuum. Essentially, I mean, look those up seriously, because this will help you understand what I was talking about in that video and what I'll be saying in this video. Look those up, learn them, get them broken down for you at that level, okay? And essentially what this means is that time does not exist as a uniform thing. Okay, let's think about this. I'll give a lot of examples here too, but let's think about this, guys. And especially for the person who asked the question. If you look into the sky at night and you're seeing the stars, science already tells us that many of those stars may already have burned out, but they're so far away in space that the light is still getting here. And that's why we can still see those stars in the sky. It's not, the star's already gone. It's already been burned out. But the light was so far away that it's taken so much time for it to travel here that we're still seeing the light of it. Okay? But in this present moment, that star is already dead. It's already burned out. Okay? So that's just one example that time is not, you know, it's not something that is so uniform. It's something that is very mysterious, and it's also very much tied into things like movement and growth. And what I mean by that is, once again, the light is a particle. It's made up of photons. Okay, so it's actually a physical thing, measurable in physical molecules of photons. So light what am I trying to say? When a star burns out, that light is moving through space towards us, okay? And so it's movement. And also, to another thing, from our position on Earth, by the time that all of the light, or the last bit of light from a burned out star, reaches to the Earth, then that star will go out to us. We won't see it anymore. However, you know, further off in space, further away from the Earth, like if the star died on this side of the Earth, we are here, the star died, its final bit of light is still coming, and it hits the Earth. And then when the final bit of the photons hit the Earth, that star will no longer be shining in our sky. We won't see it anymore. However, if you're way over here away from the Earth, then you would still see that light shining from that star. So, you know, there is no real, like, base timeline of reality. It's all tied in to the movement of things. That's just one example. Hopefully that's easy to wrap your head around, but I'll give more examples here so you can understand. Also, too, let's talk about things like the speed at which sound travels. You know, a good example is if you have two people standing in a big, large field, and, you know, one of them claps, the person that's not clapping, they'll see their hands hit, but they will hear the clapping sound, you know, a little bit of a delay after seeing the actual hands hit, because sound travels more slower than the event. Okay? Or another example is when airplanes fly over us and stuff like that. The way that how the sound hits our ears is actually delayed from how far the plane has already flown over. Okay? And so, you know, there's another example of a discrepancy in time, because we're hearing the sound after the fact that it has already occurred. Okay? It's relatively shortly after, but it is still enough to where it's noticeable. Okay? And once again, that is because sound travels slower than light. What we see with our eyes is light. So we see the plane moving at its relatively real speed. We see the person clap at their relatively real speed, but the sound is slower than the light travels to our eyes. So we hear it, you know, with a little bit of a delay than we see it with. And these are particles, these are vibrations moving, okay? And we perceive them at different intervals. So time is not a base thing. It's all tied in to movement, the movement of particles, the movement of things, okay? The movement of matter. There's more examples I could give. Let's see. I kind of have to get abstract with this, but this is more tying into what I told y'all to look up. Look up time dilation in science, and look up YouTube videos about it, and they'll break this down as well. But what I meant when I said that time is not real, there's only movement and growth, is basically this. If you're just an empty space, there's nothing, no there's no other objects around you. Like literally, just imagine that you are in empty space and it is just blackness all around you in every direction. There'll be no way for you to know how much time is passing, or if you're even moving at all either. And that's because time is movement. It's the same thing. Now, if you saw the planet Earth floating beneath you and you saw yourself orbiting around it, then you could start to have time because you have movement. Okay? You have a pattern, you have a cycle. Okay? And that's basically, that is what science has broken this down to, them even saying, and understanding scientists, and even Albert Einstein saying that, you know, there is no actual time. There's only what's called a space-time continuum. There's only movement. There's only cycles of, you know, the planets moving around the sun, or the sun moving around the center of the galaxy. Those are cycles. Those are movements of physical matter, of growing things. If you want to look at, you know, planets and stuff as alive like I do, it's basically just life growing or life moving. That is what time really is when you break it down to this level. Okay? So I hope that that makes sense to you. I hope that answers your question. And, you know, that's just what it is. Once again, I do recommend you look up things like time dilation and things like that, because that will further break it down and explain it for you. That, for example, you know, if you have two different people in space, and, you know, one of them just stays in orbit above the Earth, and one travels really, really far out into space, they will begin to, and they both have a clock, they'll begin to experience time differently. To them, to their perception, the clock will continue to act normal. But when that person comes back from really far out into space, and then they compare the clocks, they'll be different. I don't understand it fully myself, but it is tied into, that's what time dilation is. I do recommend you go and, once again, watch videos on that where they break it down much more in detail than I just did. But it's tied into movement. It's tied into distance from objects that are moving relative to your movement. And all of that, it's just all interlaced and interconnected in such a way that essentially, as well, at that level, we all experience time differently based on our life, on our perception, on our movement. Okay? So, hopefully I answered more questions than I brought up for you in this video, but I do recommend you do your own research on this, because you will probably understand it more better when you get it explained by scientists and stuff talking about these things. But, you know, this is something that I came to understand on my own through meditation and through Gnosis with Goddess Hecate and stuff like that. There is no time. There is just movement. There is just patterns of movement. There is just growth of life. And the patterns and cycles that, you know, it takes in its course. So hopefully that's understandable, and hopefully that answers your question. If anyone else has any questions, please leave that in the comments below. I'm thinking about doing another Q&A. So if you have any questions about anything I've covered before and that you didn't understand fully, or if you have questions about anything magical or spiritual or whatever, what have you, leave that in the comments below, and I will most likely get to that in a Q&A very soon. But that's going to be all for this video. Thanks for watching. Hail to the witches, hail Hecate, and blessed be.